Hello, everyone. My name is Jason Webb. I teach here at USC in comparative literature, and I serve as the associate director of the Shinso Ito Center for Japanese Religions and Culture. It's my great pleasure today to convene the latest episode of our Japanese food culture and culinary traditions speaker series. And it is, of course, my particular delight to welcome Tezen Wakako-san, who has come from Tokyo yesterday to join us. Tezen-san is a native of Shimane Prefecture, and she comes from a very distinguished lineage, the Tezen family. She is currently, well, she's always involved in the family museum curation and those exhibitions and whatnot, but in more recent times, she's also founded her own company for art consulting in Tokyo. And so we welcome her to the USC campus. Following Tezen-san's remarks today will be a response from Professor Emerita Ann Walthall, who needs very little introduction from me, I think. Those of us in the field know her from her extraordinary research on Edo-Period topics, including, let's see, peasant uprisings, peasant women, palace women, and early modern Japanese studies, Kokugaku. The event also is linked to a meal. I say meal, it's really an extraordinary thing. Today, Chef David Schlosser from Shibumi DTLA has joined us tomorrow night. He is going to present under guidance from Tezen-san a meal which is essentially a recreation of a 1789 banquet. So it's going to be quite an event at his restaurant. So let's see, before I turn things over, I just want to say one last thing about format. We'll have the two speakers, and then we'll move into a kind of a question and answer period, which will involve not just the live audience, but also the many folks who have tuned in from places around the world. And so to that latter segment of the audience, I'm going to ask you, please do not send questions to the chat bar, but rather, if you go down, you'll see a Q&A button. If you put that, then that will kind of put everything in sequence, and I'll be able to look those over and address the questions in the fairest way between the live audience and those of you in Zoom land. So without further ado, please join me, everyone, in giving a warm Trojan welcome to Tezen-san and to Professor Wall.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity today. My name is Tezen Wakako. Before I begin, I would like to express my gratitude to Professor John Webb and Chef David Schlosser for giving me the opportunity to come to LA and share my family's history. I'm also deeply honored to be here and look forward to learning from Professor Nan during this talk. Today, I will discuss the system of Goyō-yado, which existed during the Edo period based on materials passed down through my family. Here's today's outline. I will start with a brief introduction to Izumo and the Tezen family, followed by an overview of the materials preserved by the family. I will then explain what the Goyō-yado system was and how the Tezen family fulfilled its role within this framework. Finally, I will highlight the specific historical record of Matsudaira Nobuchika's visit to the Tezen household, detailing the preparations and hospitality provided at the time. Let me begin with a brief overview of Izumo. Here is a map of Japan. Izumo is located on the west side of the country in what is now Shimane Prefecture. You see the red part here. The area highlighted in dark pink in Shimane is Izumo. And the Tezen family home is situated just a 7 to 8 minute walk from Izumo Taisha Shrine. Next, I'd like to introduce Izumo Taisha Shrine. Izumo Taisha is one of Japan's oldest and most significant shrines, believed to date back to the 8th century. The main deity enshrined here is Okuni-nushi no Mikoto, or Okuni-nushi no Okami, a god known for his powers of matchmaking and medicine. In the lunar calendar, October is known as the month of deities, Kami Arizuki, in Izumo, as it is said that all gods from across Japan gather here. Conversely, other region calls this month the month without deities, Kannazuki. This tradition underscores Izumo's long-standing significance as a central place of faith and worship in Japan. This is the Kuchizusami. According to the educational text from the 10th century, Izumo Taisha is described as being taller than the Daibutsu-den at Todaiji Temple, which stands at 48 meters, which is almost equivalent to 159 feet. According to this history, this drawing dates back to the year 2000, when Obayashi Corporation is a construction company in Japan, attempted to envision the structure of Izumo Taisha as it might have appeared during the Heian period, 9th to 12th century. As you can see, it looks quite different from the buildings of today. While some experts have expressed different opinions of this reconstruction, it sparks our imagination. Now let me introduce the Tezen family. Our history dates back to 1686, when the first generation patriarch Tezen Kiemon Osamitsu settled in this area and began his business. Professionally, the family had established itself as merchants, engaging in trades such as millet, medicine, timber, and textile. The family also brewed and supplied sacred sake to shrine. The sacred sake omiki was made from special rice provided by Izumo Taisha, underscoring the importance of their role. This legacy continued until the Meiji Restoration. The Tezen family also contributed significantly to the local community. For example, during the Great Flood of 1702, the second generation patriarch invested his own resources to plant trees along the coast, mitigating future flood damage. Thus, the Tezen family was not only engaged in commerce, but also deeply involved in regional development. The family played roles such as managing accounts for Izumo Taisha and were treated as close associates, kinjukaku, of the Senge family. They maintained both public and private relationships with the Senge and Kitajima clans, as well as other shrine families. From at least the third generation Hakusaburo Kiken onwards, the Tezen family has served as senior village leaders, Otoshiori, overseeing the 6 villages of Kizuki, a role that allowed them the privilege of bearing surnames and swords. In April 1993, the Tezen Museum was established as a foundation dedicated to managing and researching artifacts and historical materials passed down through the Tezen family. The exhibition rooms are renovated rice and sake warehouses originally built during the Edo period. The collection includes a wide range of cultural artifacts, hanging scrolls, folding screens, swords, tea utensils, and historical documents. This is the first exhibition room. Originally constructed as a rice warehouse, this space is dedicated to special exhibitions. The exhibitions are changed 4 to 5 times a year. And this is the second exhibition room, originally constructed as a sake brewery in 1860, and later repurposed as a temporary school building until 1903. This room exhibits hundreds of pieces of traditional art and crafts from Izumo region. Highlights include ceramics linked to Matsudaira Humai, the 7th lord of the region, such as Rakuzan ware and Fujina ware, as well as lacquer ware by generations of Kojima Shikkosai. Among the collection, today's talk will focus on the handwritten documents passed down through the family. These first 3 are the major categorization. So first, Yorozu Nikki. Yorozu Nikki is a series of records written and passed down by successive Tezen family heads throughout the Edo period. Currently, 15 volumes have been preserved. The contents cover a whole range of topics, including the management of the Goyō-yado system, duties as town officials, interactions with the domain government, matters related to family businesses, and accounts of natural disasters such as earthquakes, storms, famines, and fires. Additionally, they contain notes to hearsay and folklore, and details about weddings, funerals, and other ceremonial events. Some sections of manuscripts show various in handwriting, suggesting that someone other than the head of the family, likely someone close to them, may have contributed as a scribe. The photograph is from an exhibition organized in 2008. As you can see, each Yorozu Nikki is quite thick. Next is Goyō-dome. The Goyō-dome contains official directives from the domain government and Izumo Taisha Shrine. 51 volumes spanning 1746 to 1866 have been preserved. Each volume typically corresponds to 1 year. There are also other notes left by the family. This photograph shows a note written by the 3rd generation, Hakusaburo Kiken, where the very first record of Goyō-yado appears. I'd like to also briefly mention about our library collection. It has a variety of documents, including locally issued materials, which have attracted the interest of researchers, particularly in the fields of literature. Next, let me explain today's main topic, the concept of Goyō-yado. Goyō-yado were lodging facilities that accommodated feudal lords, government officials, and other dignitaries. While such lodgings are often called honjin in other regions, they were referred to as Goyō-yado in Matsue Domain. Goyō-yado were designated homes that played a leadership role in the communities and were tasked with providing these services as a duty to the feudal government. This role required not only high social standing, but also substantial financial resources. The earliest record instance dates back to 1746, when the 6th feudal lord of the Matsue Domain, stayed at the Tezen residence. According to a booklet written by the third generation head Kiken, the lord initially planned to stay at another lodging but expressed a preference of the Tezen family. As a result, the family and their relatives worked overnight to prepare. While the text suggests this was the lord's first stay at the Tezen house, it is unlikely the family had no prior experience served as a Goyō-yado. The most recent recorded instance dates to 1856. The records span 110 years. So how many times did the family serve as Goyō-yado? While it is unclear if all visits were documented, there are currently 113 recorded instances of the Tezen family serving as a Goyō-yado, including both officials and private visits by domain officials. According to the record, there are 4 categories of guests who stayed with the family through Goyō-yado system. The first category consists of feudal lords, their family members, and their concubines. These guests were often visiting Izumo Taisha for worship or conducting inspections in the area. The second category includes senior domain officials known as karo. These individuals acted as proxies for the feudal lords, carrying out inspections, official duties, or even private worship. The third category comprises shogunate officials. These include overseers of the Omori silver mine, traveling inspectors, and even astronomers from the shogunate, such as the renowned Ino Tadataka. Finally, the fourth category includes domain guests. These were professionals invited by the domain, such as physicians like Hata Ryuan and the professional Go players like Ohashi Soe. Together, these categories highlight the broad range of esteemed individuals accommodated under the Goyō-yado system, reflecting its significant role in the society during that time. Through the records left by the Tezen family, we gained a detailed understanding of the Goyō-yado system and its operations. First, let's discuss the rotation of responsibilities. In the 6 villages of Kizuki, approximately 4 affluent merchant families took turns providing their homes as lodging for officials. This rotation system ensured that the burden of hosting was shared among the families. Next is the preparation for lodging. Hosting officials often required significant effort, such as rearranging furniture and dividing rooms to accommodate guests. For larger groups, there are records showing that the hosting family temporarily moved into storehouses to make spaces for their visitors. When entertaining a feudal lord or a large entourage, the Tezen family occasionally collaborated with other Goyō-yado or associated families to manage accommodations and share the workload. The third point is flexibility in hosting. While the responsibility of hosting was usually taken on in turn, there were cases when circumstances required changes to the order. Additionally, specific requests from the guests themselves sometimes overrode the rotation system. Finally, we come to the financial burden. Hosting officials involved considerable expenses. This included preparing meals, arranging futons and baths, replacing sliding doors and tatami mats, and setting up furniture and decorations. However, it remains unclear how much of these costs were reimbursed by the domain. Another point to consider is the practice of hisoku negai, or requests for temporary exemption. Family with official roles could seek exemption from their social duties when facing financial strain. In the Matsue Domain, these requests were submitted to the domain and sometimes to Izumo Taisha, often including detailed financial recovery plans. Notably, some of the Tezen family's Hisoku Negai documents show they intended to continue their duties as Goyō-yado despite financial challenges, depicting their dedication and regard for the role as an owner. Among the over 100 visits recorded in the Goyō-yado archives, we will now take a closer look at the account of Matsudaira Nobuchika's visit, documented in Yorozu Nikki, Volume 5. Matsudaira Nobuchika was the son of the 6th Lord of the Matsue Domain. This record provides valuable insights into how the visit was prepared and carried out. The visit took place on the 4th and 5th days of the 11th month in the lunar calendar, which corresponds to mid-December. This means the visit occurred around this very time of the year. The details of this visit recorded in the 180th chapter of Volume 5, spanning 25 pages. Now let us turn our attention to the actual document. The first 12 pages of the entry provide a comprehensive overview of the preparation schedule, house arrangements, artworks displayed, communication involving the fourth patriarch Koresaburo, and the names of the guests Nobuchika's entourage. Let's take a look at the first and second pages. For reference, I've included transcription of the text. For those who understand Japanese, you can see that even in this form, the text still needs to be interpreted and rewritten into modern Japanese. Let's go through it step by step. Please note that the Edo-Period used a different time system from today, so the times mentioned should be understood as approximate. So this is 180th. Concerning Lord Komajiro, Komajiro is the Nobuchika's other name. A pilgrimage to Kizuki Shrine. Kizuki Shrine is other name for Izumo Taisha. Now I read the first paragraph. On the night of November 3rd, at around 7 p.m., a notice of the visit arrived from the merchant store Yorozuya in Imaichi, prompting us to make urgent preparations. To prepare ochitsuki rice cakes, we procured 2 to, approximately 36 liters of sticky rice and starch powder, along with an additional 6 sho, about 10 liters, of regular rice. In addition, fish and other ingredients were arranged from various sources, ensuring that most of the required provisions were prepared. A detailed menu was also prepared. These preparation and arrangements have been recorded in the log for future reference. That's the first paragraph. So as it says, the visit was only announced the day before their arrival. So it was a very, very difficult situation that they had. And it was 7 p.m., so it was even less than 24 hours. The second paragraph here. Garden room, 8 new tatami mats made with high quality bingo omote, premium tatami facing, were laid. Next paragraph. Otoko alcove, hanging scroll of cranes, inkstone box placed on a small table, a sword stand newly crafted from green bamboo, new bamboo, was placed on the shelves. A kotatsu, heated table, because it's going to be very cold, was also prepared. kotatsu. We see kotatsu here. The next paragraph. Tea room, hanging scroll, a horizontal work attributed to Sesshu. Furnishing included midare bako, a box, an inkstone box, and a sword stand. Folding screens. Kasen byobu, immortal poet screen, crane screen, and musha e byobu, warrior paintings screen. And the next paragraph is bath area. An existing bath bucket was used while a new basin for hand washing was prepared. 2 new yukata, light cotton robes, were made. So what's interesting is that the works described in the record in this 4th paragraph have been identified and preserved by the museum. Now let me show you the images of the 3 folding screens. Okay, here. So first is the 36 immortal poets, byobu, folding screens from mid-Edo period. And this is the crane's folding screen from early Edo period. And this is the folding screen depicting the Battle of Taikemon Gate. So this is the Mushae byobu from mid-Edo period. So from page 3 to 8, the record primarily outlines detailed schedule. So here it says on November 4th, his lordship was expected to arrive at 6 p.m. He departed at noon and headed to Kizuki. Around 4 p.m., his lordship arrived in Kizuki and entered the lodging. Normally, a formal welcome would have been arranged, but as this was a discreet visit, the official reception was omitted. Upon his lordship arrival, a serving tray for sweets and tray for tobacco were presented. Using sampo, ceremonial offering stand, with ceremonial paper noshi, the sweets were placed in the alcove. The host then inquired, "The sweets are ready. May I present them?" Upon receiving approval, the sweets were formally offered. Additionally, his lordship requested a second set of dishes to be served for tasting, ensuring the food's safety. So here we see dokumi. This is to check if this doesn't contain any dangerous ingredients. After one of his attendants sampled the meal, his lordship dishes were served anew. A lacquered jubako box was filled with sweets and presented along with soup, sake, and side dishes served on a suzuributa. This is very typical plate, a plate resembling the lid of an inkstone case. His lordship enjoyed these offerings, which were followed by a banquet. During the banquet, Korezaburo, the 4th generation head of the family, was summoned. As the house has a long history, his lordship requested the family to bring tea utensils and personal items, such as kettle, a tea caddy, and short sword, wakizashi, which were then offered to him. His lordship admired the stones in the garden, remarking, "These are splendid." He also appreciated the old cherry tree, commenting, "This is a fine tree, and it will be even more charming when it blooms." When asked about the name of the cherry tree, the family replied, "It is called Tsurigane Zakura, bell cherry." His lordship then mentioned that he had heard that Kiken, the 3rd generation head, the father of the 4th generation, was a master of elegant pursuits. As his lordship himself was fond of haiku and his entourage also enjoyed it, he suggested sharing verses. However, the family explained that due to the flurry of preparations and Kiken's advanced age, they were no longer they said they were no longer practicing haiku. So they declined. For the attendants, his lordship instructed that the simpler trays be used for their meals. After dinner, his lordship took a bath. Regarding lanterns, chōchin, in front of the gates, it was noted that since this was a discreet visit, lanterns should not be displayed. However, the household received instructions from the senior retainer to use lanterns bearing the family crest and house names if available. As a result, such lanterns were hung. Later, the main meal, honzen, was served shortly before midnight. So shortly before midnight, so it was a very, very long dinner. And by 1 a.m., his lordship retired for the night. The following morning, on November 5th, breakfast was served around 7 a.m. After breakfast, his lordship visited Izumo Taisha in a discreet manner with Korezaburo, the fourth generation, serving as the guide in formal attire, hakama. At the stone steps of Yatsushimon, his lordship palanquin was carried, and representatives from the Senge and Kitajima shrine families received him. His lordship viewed the sacred treasures and departed for the return journey around noon. This shows the morning schedule. Now, this is a list of attendants. So there are about 20, not about this, there are 23 attendants, senior retainer, financial goods manager, attendant page, physician, companion, transport officer, tea ceremony attendant, overseer, and shaven servant, and zori bearer, the shoes bearer, other attendants, and me preparer, and female attendant. So in total, there were 23 attendants accompanying the lordship. And additionally, actually, 8 palanquin bearers stayed in separate lodging. So it's 31 people total. And for bedding of his lordship, a new futon was made, and the attendant's bedding was prepared with great care and attention to details. So page 13 to 19 of the entry are dedicated to the menu prepared for Matsudaira Nobuchika's visit. This account offers fascinating glimpse into Edo-Period's haute cuisine, crafted with care and elegance for nobility. So while the full menu is too extensive to describe in detail here, I will show you the translation just now. Just a brief introduction. This is the sweet that they served in the beginning. They served in the alcove, and then it was okay to serve, so they served. And then suzuri buta, the inkstone lid, and you see this. And this is yugozen, so dinner starts, and then the second tray. And then this is the morning, this is the breakfast. And then lastly is lunch. So let me show you the menu. So this is the translation. So I would like to highlight some things. So the menu begins with ochitsuki, a light and welcoming course, and progresses to more substantial dishes like yugozen and ninozen, the second tray. And given the sudden nature of the visit, it is believed that they made the most of the ingredients readily available nearby and those they typically kept in stock. For example, we see freeze-dried konjac, freeze-dried konjac jelly, a fascinating ingredient that is no longer common today, thanks to the modern preservation methods and transportation. And we see some ingredients like kunembo or shoro, and also samurai chisha, Japanese letters. These are now very quite difficult to find in this time, today's time. And also the seasoning is also very interesting. For example, irizake. It is irizake. Irizake was used as a substitute for soy sauce during the Edo-period. It was made by simmering pickled plum, sake, and the ingredients like bonito flakes. And sake was always served with the meal, even with the breakfast. And then this is page 20. And this describes how the head of the Tezen family perceived the practice of welcoming guests through the Goyō-yado system. So here's the note. We will read. As stated, all proceedings were carried out smoothly, and his lordship spent entire time in good spirits. On November 5th, shortly after noon, his lordship departed. Following this, Koresaburo, dressed in formal attire, Kamishimo, visited the main inn in Imaichi to express gratitude and presented 2 ryo of silver coins to the overseer, Motojime, Fujitsugu Dono. Should we be entrusted with lodging duties in the future, we will take responsibility for catering the meals for the young lord, Komajiro Nobuchika. While we cannot refuse such an important duty, it is an immense honor and a matter of great reverence to serve meals directly to the young lord. We must approach this task with careful consideration and the utmost attention. So why he's saying this is that, as I have explained, within the 23 attendants, there was even a chef. So normally for the important guests, the Goyō-yado don't really serve meals because if anything happens, it's a very serious thing. So normally the accompanied chef will cook for the main guests. So it shows that the Tezen family was trusted well enough so that the Lord himself wanted to have the dinner served by them. But it was the sort of very kind of very hard thing for them to, it was high responsibility and it was not easy thing to take for the family. So lastly, let's look at the page 21 to 25, which include the purchase record and expenses for this visit. The list details almost everything they bought or paid for, including payments to those who worked during the visit. It includes fees for items that were renewed and the ingredients used for the meals. Understanding the total cost of the preparation is of great interest, but calculating it accurately is challenging. Exchange rates vary depending on the region and time period, and there are no fully reliable resources to base these calculations on. So for this estimation, I thought about this for a while, and I'm using 20 to 30 yen per mon. Mon is the 1 silver kan is 1,000 mon, and they spend 52 kan, so basically, 52 kan and 329 mon. So I use the prices of sake today, how much it costs for issho being the big bottle, and cooking fees, so how much they paid to the chefs. So compared to today's prices. So that will so I made a sort of a little range from 20 to 30 yen mon. That's 1 million yen to 1.5 million yen, which is like approximately $7,000 and $10,000 US with today's exchange rate. So it's a lot of but a lot of cost that they had to take. Now, to summarize, the records of the Goyō-yado system preserved by the Tezen family offered an invaluable window into the life of the Izumo region during the Edo period. These materials provide a comprehensive view of the social, economic, and cultural dynamics of the time, showcasing the intricate relationships between local families, domain authorities, and visiting dignitaries. The Tezen family's meticulous documentation from the Yorozu Nikki to the various artifacts preserved in the Tezen Museum continues to be a rich resource for historians and researchers. It is our hope that these materials will continue to be studied and appreciated, offering future generations insights into this unique aspect of Japanese history and culture. So here are some reference materials that provide additional context and support for the information presented, mostly in Japanese and a little bit hard to obtain. It's locally published books. I extend my sincere appreciation to the professors and researchers at Shimane University and the National Institute of Japanese Literature, whose efforts in transcribing these documents and connecting them with their areas of expertise have been instrumental in unveiling these details. Additionally, I'd like to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Sasaki Anri of the Tezen Museum for her invaluable assistance in preparing this presentation. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tezen-san. So we will ask Professor Walthall to switch over, do a little changing of the guard here. So please give us just a minute or two while we execute that. And anyone who has a question, if you're in Zoom land, feel free to go ahead and submit it to the Q&A portal on the Zoom website. We'll be resuming just in a moment.
Hi, じゃあそっちに座ります。I will bring my pen.
Hi, that was a fascinating talk. I must say, I feel like I'm completely unnecessary at this point. I really enjoyed it and I have many, many questions. It was so interesting. But Jason suggested that I talk about Izumo, the history of Izumo Shrine, to give some background to Wakako's talk. And so that's what I have done. There's a lot to this and history of the shrine, I must say. Now, do I hit return? Is that how this works? Why is this not working? Oh, that. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. It's not going. No.
There's just a lot of Izumo. There we go.
Okay. Harder. Okay. Bang on it. Okay. Okay, so I have a lot of things to cover. Izumo Shrine is the shrine dedicated to Okuni Nushi, and so I'm going to begin first with him, and then talk a little bit about the first Izumo Shrine, then Izumo in local history, and for this I'm going to rely on Joan Piggott's article, which I read many years ago and still remembered. Believe it or not, I'm so impressed with my memory. Actually, it was a great article. And then skim through the Heian and Kamakura periods, talk about Okuni Nushi in medieval Japan and esoteric Buddhism, and then look at what happens to Izumo Shrine in the 17th century when the Domain family and the Shogunate reject Buddhism for a very early attempt at cleansing Shinto of Buddhist elements, and then talk about how Hinata Atsutane, who was a guy I've worked on, and his disciple Mutobe Yoshika viewed Okuni Nushi, and what happens then in 1882 with the Pantheon dispute. So I need to work very fast to get through all this. Yes, I do. So anyway, myths about Okuni Nushi and Izumo. Okuni Nushi was a descendant of Susanoo O, and for those of you who know your Japanese history will recall that he is the younger brother of the sun goddess. And there are many, many stories about him found in the ancient texts. There's one story I'm going to tell, which is about the rabbit of Inaba, or the hare of Inaba, where there was this little rabbit, and the rabbit, do you know remember this story? This rabbit tricks some crocodiles into lining up so he can jump over them to get to the other shore of a river. And when they find out that he's tricked them, they tear off his fur. And so the poor little rabbit is there without any fur on, and he asks Okuni Nushi's brothers, well, what should I do? And they say, oh, well, go bathe in the sea and then sit in the sun. Well, that, of course, is very painful. And so the poor rabbit is sitting there crying, I hurt. Along comes Okuni Nushi, and he says, oh, that was a dumb thing to do. What you should do is bathe in a river, and here I've got some herbs that I will rub over you. And sure enough, the rabbit is cured, which is why he is the god of medicine, and also the promoter of onsen. So very important. But the rabbit is so grateful, and the hare is so grateful to Okuni Nushi for healing him, that he says that you will be the your older brother, those nasty older brothers, forget them. You're the one who's going to be the leader of this region. And so there are many shrines in the Izumo region that are related to his exploits. And there's a shrine maiden that he tried to seduce. There's a shrine to her. There's a shrine to his wife. The shrine where his wife originally comes from, Suseri. And anyway, as I say, he's benevolent. He's very important. But most important to these myths is how he yields the land, because he's the chief of the earthly gods. And so there he is, on Japan, having a wonderful time consolidating the land. But then the sun goddess decides that her heavenly grandson, Ninigi, should rule the land, and she sends messengers down to Okuni Nushi, telling him that he is to give it up. He wasn't too happy about this, and it required several messengers and much negotiation for him to agree. Finally, he accepts the sun goddess's demand and withdraws. Now, in the early history, the Kojiki, which is where most of this can be found, it's not at all clear what withdrawal means. Does it mean that he goes to some sort of netherworld, the Nennoyo? Does he go to Yomi? And if so, where is Yomi and what is Yomi? Nobody really knew at that time. Or does he go to some sort of periphery? And these are questions that are debated in later centuries. But his one demand is that the heavenly gods build him a palace high enough to reach the heavens. And that is the origin of Izumo Shrine. And as Wakako mentioned, this first shrine, Okuni Nushi wanted his shrine to be built on a thick pillar, stuck firmly in the ground, and raised up high using 1,000 trees, which is why you get this long road going up. And then at the very back, you can see sort of that there's a pillar in the middle there. And for a long time, people thought, oh, this is just myth. But in fact, then in the year 2000, archaeologists discovered the remnants of a big pillar composed of 3 tree trunks tied together that give very good evidence for this myth. And in fact, you can see that at the archaeological site in Shimane today. Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, and as Wakako mentioned, there are court records starting about 970 that talk about how high the shrine was. And as you say, they were It was higher, in fact, than the Daibutsu Inn at Todaiji, which was in fact still considered the largest wooden building in the world, or at least here in Japan. The problem with a height like this and a shrine like this is it's not terribly stable. And in fact, there are repeated references in Heian period records to collapse and the need for repairs. And this is something that you don't find for other shrines. It was really unique to Izumo that this was a shrine that, because it was so tall and on the shaky side, it needed repair, and the court felt it was important to record all this. But that's the myth. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the early history of Izumo. And Joan, you should recognize this map, since it's from your article. What you find is that Izumo well, don't do that. That was not nice. Why can't I move my little? This is Izumo province, and this is where the shrine is in what's called Kitsuki, which was the original name for it. The more advanced area of Izumo at that time was right over here in O, where you can see all sorts of things, all sorts of shrines. And it's in fact the original family that ends up controlling Izumo Shrine is from this eastern part of Izumo, and they finally moved west. But what happens is, Joan argues that as early local rulers groped for ways to rule larger areas, more confederacies of villages, they claimed descent from divine ancestors specific to a locale who gave them sacred powers. And so by worshiping their ancestors, they asserted their authority, which is a unity of rights and rule, very important in 1868 when people were saying we've got to bring the emperor back to direct rule, seisai ichi. Anyway, but in order to expand their rule and unify more confederacies into larger political units, the O family needed a god with more expansive powers. And so they start claiming descent from Ame no Hohi no Mikoto. And then they take over, and the rituals at the Kitsuki Shrine, which is what later becomes Izumo Taisha. This god at the Kitsuki Shrine is deemed one of the creator gods and uses his superior status to claim hegemony over all of Izumo. So of course the O family can also claim political hegemony over all of Izumo as well. They also claim that their god, this Ame no Hohi, was related to the tutelary deities of other chieftains. And of course, they start marrying and developing as many marital relations as they can with these other local chieftains. And so what you've got is power relations among the gods that mirror power relations in the world of humans. Now, of course, this doesn't last forever. The Yamato court, which is on the other side of Japan, is expanding its reach over the rest of Japan. It fights in Kyushu. It fights in the area just to the west of Izumo, but it doesn't apparently fight in Izumo itself. It seems to have been able to negotiate an agreement with the O family that the O family will submit to Yamato rule, and you can read Joan's article to find out more about that. Anyway, so by the middle of the 6th century, it appears that the O provincial rulers were serving under Yamato rulers. And eventually what happens is that the Yamato rulers appoint provincial governors to rule over the province. And the O family sticks at Izumo, what I'm going to call Izumo Shrine, and becomes the lineage that is a sort of high priest of that shrine, where their descendants still serve to today. It's just, I think, probably one of the longest lineages in Japanese history is this O family lineage that descends from Ame no Hohi. Anyway, there'll be more about that later. Now I want to go briefly through the Heian period, Heian to Kamakura period. There are 3 points I want to make. One is that O-kuni-nushi is accepted by the imperial court in Kyoto as the people's protective deity. He has many consorts, He has 180 children, and they symbolize his vast productive prowess. And his children become scattered across Japan, in shrines across Japan. But this is one of the reasons why he is seen as such a, a benevolent god and the god of marriage and good relations, is because he's got all these kids and he gets along with all his wives. Under the impact of Buddhism, he becomes identified with or confused with the Buddhist deity Daikoku-ten and worshipped as a harbinger of good fortune. As I said, the god of marital relations, the foundation for flourishing offspring. I mean, if you want lots of kids, obviously you want to worship somebody who has lots of kids. And he is also worshipped to ensure the prosperity and the continuance of the house. What happens, though, is that the shrine starts to shrink in size, it is, after all, unsteady, and starts to include more structures, which we'll talk about later. Now, starting in the 8th century and continuing into the Heian period, you have to figure, the court starts assigning various hamlets and to support the shrine. The problem is that the shrine can't always control the amount of income it's getting from these hamlets, and there are various fights over, okay, you say you're supposed to give us this much, why haven't you done it? Well, we couldn't because there was a local samurai who took it all. And so you find that the shrine is starting to lose income. And this leads to repeated disputes with local samurai. Also, starting in the 14th century, this is during the Namboku era, the era where you've got two courts. You've got the northern court and you've got the southern court, and they both claim that they should be ruling Japan, although they have absolutely no power, either one of them. But what you find then is that there are disputes, family disputes all over Japan. The court is one, and Izumo Shrine is another. You have disputes over two brothers, then two lineages within the O family. And by the end of the Namboku period, you have two different families, the Senge and the Kitajima, who together control the Izumo Shrine. And even today, I think one is out, on one side of the main gate and the other is at the other side, right?
That's right.
Yeah. But they all claim to be, both families, both the Senge and the Kitajima, claim to be descended from Ame no Hohi no Mikoto, and they call themselves Izumo no Omi. So in the medieval period then, what you find during the 15th century is what I'm talking about now, you find that popular beliefs regarding Okuni Nishi change. And it's beginning in 1444 that you find the idea that all the gods in Japan go to Izumo in the 10th lunar month. Wakako explained about all of that. And what else was I going to say about that? Not much, as I recall. Anyways, also, so you have the gods, this is a popular belief that the gods have to go to Izumo. You also have the idea that that there is a new Shinto philosophy that's being developed that's rooted in the conceptual framework of esoteric Buddhism. And esoteric Buddhism has this idea that there are divisions that mirror each other. For example, the matters of the kami belong to the dark realm. Human affairs pertain to the bright realm. So Okuni Nishi embodies divine law, but the sun goddess's grandson Ninigi and his descendants, who are the current emperors, embody the human law or the imperial law. So you've got oppositions between, this is where you really get the idea that there's an opposition between the visible world of human affairs and there is an invisible world of godly affairs, but they mirror each other. And so they're always, there's this, in some sense, they're always in contact with each other. Now, where was I going? Oh, yeah. There's also, and there's an opposition between them, but they're also united, as all oppositions are. So you've got invisible and invisible human and godly affairs, open teachings, and secret teachings. And so Confucianists take this one step further, arguing that whereas visible worlds are, visible worlds are the way of humans, and therefore yang, invisible affairs are that of the gods, and therefore yin. So you've also got another duality of yin and yang, or yang and yin, I guess. It's yang is human and yin is the godly affairs. And so there are lots of ambiguities in all of this new Shinto philosophy. So Okuni Nushi, for example, resides both in a palace in heaven and in his shrine in Izumo. So he's at two places at once, and probably more, since like most gods, he can be infinitely divided and scattered across shrines across Japan. There's a shrine in Koshigaya near Tokyo that worships Okuni Nushi, which I've been very interested in. Anyway, now where am I? Oh, yes. So what happens at Izumo in this period is that the shrine integrates kami and Buddhas, priests and monks, and ultimately the rituals and initiations that you practice under this new form of Shinto philosophy, they derive from Buddhism, and they aim at grasping or gaining a union with the kami, becoming one with the gods, and thus overcoming the divisions between the dark realm or the unseen realm and the human realm. Now these rituals that you have to perform, these initiations, these have to be secret because secrecy was identical with the nature of the kami. And in fact, that never completely goes away. But then you find things, but of course, things are always changing. I'm sure this is all very clear to you, I hope. Anyway, what you find then in early modern Japan is that things start changing, and they start changing, and these changes can also be seen with the changes in the hegemons who's ruling Japan. In 1607, Toyotomi Hideyori, the son of Hideyoshi, decides to build a shrine. And where am I? Oh, yes. He has this, he's got lots of money, so he rebuilds the shrine very, very lavishly. And you can see that you've got, now it's just going to let me do this. Here is the Honden. This is what was once on that tall pillar. It's shrunk a lot over the centuries, but it's got, you can see that it's still got a staircase going up to it. And this is a Haiden. But what's really interesting about this particular shrine complex is, guess what we've got right here? This is a pagoda, right? Hideyori was a big believer in the combination of Buddhism and Shinto. And he also puts a big elaborate fence around this thing. And he's got this 2-story gate in the front, and meeting halls, headquarters for priests, waiting rooms, and so on and so forth. And the shrine, the Honden, however, decreases to 8 meters in height for the floor and 17.4 meters for the ridgepole. But that doesn't last very long, actually, well, in long times, because the next thing that happens is along comes the Tokugawa. They don't think much of the Hideyoshi, the Toyotomi. And what you find then is that this is what happens in 1667. This is when Shogun Tokugawa Ieyatsuna takes over the site. And he has, first of all, he has the shrine move closer to the mountains, but he also has the Honden expanded in an attempt to restore the past, revive the past. And so you can see it's a little bit taller than it was under Hideyori. He's got a whole bunch of new buildings. He's got more gates, more elaborate gates. He's got one gate with a viewing platform. He's got he puts a roof over the shelter for purification. There was also a stable for a sacred horse, because after all, we all know that gods ride horses, and a large torii and a middle-sized torii. But everything is expanded beyond what there was before. But do we see a pagoda? No, he takes out the pagoda. And in fact, what happens is, this is what happens in 1667, is that there is the elimination of Buddhist elements. And in 1665, the shogunate issues clauses governing shrines that put Shinto on a par with Buddhism instead of below Buddhism as it had been in medieval Japan. And both Ise and Izumo radically reduced Buddhist facilities around their shrines. So you've got a separation in 1667 of Buddhism and Shinto, which is called Bushi. God, I can't read my own writing. Separating Shinto and Buddhism at what had been shrine temple complexes. And in Izumo, the driving force was the Matsue Domain Lord, Matsudaira Nobuchika, who was a grandson of Ieyasu. Ieyasu had lots of grandsons. But the Matsudaira, his descendants then rule Matsue Domain. They're the ones who, of course, the Tezen family are serving. And they're a kamon, that is, they're a family of the members of the Tokugawa, but they're separated from the Tokugawa, so they're not part of the lineage that would provide a shogun if necessary. Anyway, so what you have is Shinbutsu Bunri 200 years before the more famous Shinbutsu Bunri of the 1870s, which I had not known this. I think that's really fascinating that they did this so early. But in Izumo, what happens is that all Buddhist elements, all Buddhist personnel are expelled. The Buddhist personnel can't even participate in the annual rites. If you want to worship the god as a private person, but you're a Buddhist priest, forget it. You're not coming anywhere near my shrine. Okay, so now we're going to jump ahead to the 19th century. And I want to focus on Hirata Atsutane's ideas regarding Okuni Nushi and where people go after they die. Remember, as I said earlier, that things were really pretty vague on what happens to people after they die. The Kojiki is very unclear on that. And at the same time, in popular beliefs, Okuni Nushi has taken on the role of the god to whom all the gods report to in the 10th lunar month, and people pray to him, as we know, for good marriages and good relations with other people, success in business. The typical sorts of this worldly benefits that we find in modern Japan, that people say, oh, well, Shinto is nothing but prayers for good this worldly benefits, which yes and no. I think there is a doctrine behind Shinto. Anyway, and so what happens after you die? Well, the Buddhists had answers for that. You might go to Amida's paradise, or you might go to a Buddhist hell. You never know. In the 18th century, the great scholar of Japan studies, Motoori Norinaga, he decided that everyone goes to Yomi when they die. And Yomi is, according to him, according to where Izanami goes, it's a dark, filthy, polluted place. And this doesn't, this is not reassuring. But Atsutane disagrees. Atsutane says one can't go to Yomi because according to his cosmology, Yomi breaks off from the earth and becomes the moon. And in fact, one piece of evidence for this is a poem from the Manyoshu, which talks about Tsukiyomi, the moon already beautiful. So clearly, it's Yomi doesn't have to be glossed with the grass or the characters for Yellow Springs. It can be glossed with the characters for already beautiful. Doesn't that make sense? Much better. And in fact, what he says, and in fact, when people die, they simply disappear into the unseen world, the invisible world, a parallel universe to the visible world. They become the ancestral gods who watch over their descendants for all time immemorial. Now, I would not care to have my ancestors watch over me, but apparently people like that. And this invisible world is ruled over by none other than Okuni Nushi. Now, sometimes Atsutane argues that Okuni Nushi consoles the dead. Other times he suggests that based on what local tutelary gods report, about the dead. He then judges them. Were they good people or were they not good people? This is somewhat contradictory, and he never resolves that contradiction. And he doesn't actually say that much about Okuni Nushi. He's more interested in uncovering as much as he can about the unseen parallel world. And in fact, that's what his disciples are interested. His disciples, however, are interested in what he has to say about Okuni Nushi and local tutelary deities. One of them is a very obscure disciple known as Mizawa Akira, who makes a drawing showing the dearly departed. As you can see, we've got the dearly departed right here. Let's see, can I get this? Can you see the dearly departed there on his deathbed? Right there, right?
May we take a photo of that?
Can I take a photo of that?
May I, on my phone, may I take a photo?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Thank you.
I mean, this is a from a microfilm, and I suspect that the original is in color, but the original is in a local family in Chiba and a little hard to get to. But anyway, but you can see it's a great photo. I mean, it's a great image, don't you think? Because you've got him, you know, you've got the little dead guy right here going up to meet Okuni Nushi with all of his attendants around him. And it looks just like Amida welcoming the dead to the Western paradise, right? But no, it's not. It's Okuni Nushi. Anyway, I love this picture. I just got it last spring at the very last minute when I was in Japan. Anyway, there are other people who argue that Okuni Nushi is, and the local gods are the, you know, they're the ones that they're the focal point of popular worship. And this one guy was named Mutobe Yoshika, who's a 31st generation priest at the Muko Shrine in Kyoto. And he was a real intellectual, you know, he had connections at court. His niece helps Asataya present his writings to the emperor, but he encourages villagers to worship Okuni Nushi, the ruler of the hidden world, along with their ancestors. In fact, he sees Okuni Nushi as far more important in the lives of ordinary people than the sun goddess. And this becomes a problem that later on after the Meiji Restoration. Because after the Meiji Restoration, Atsutaya's disciples split. Some joined with Mito ideologues to assert the primacy of the sun goddess and her descendant, the emperor, and that's where the people should focus their devotion on the sun goddess, and the aim being to inculcate patriotic love of country. Mutobe's disciple and the chief priest at Izumo, especially the Senge, wanted to remind everyone of the consolation afforded people by Okuni Nushi regarding death and the afterlife. Therefore, they wanted Okuni Nushi to join the pantheon enshrined at the top of the newly created Shinto hierarchy. They wanted him to join along with Amaterasu and the three creator deities. After all, he rules over the netherworld. Why shouldn't he be up there at the heart with Amaterasu, who rules over the visible world? You know, I mean, if you go back to this idea that you've got the visible and the invisible world are in some way equal. So this pits Izumo shrine priests against Ise shrine priests over which shrine should be preeminent. And then, as I say, in a way, this encapsulates the original negotiations between the heavenly gods and the earthly gods, in which the earthly gods consented to yield to the visible realm while remaining salient to people's lives in the invisible realm. So the government finally, you know, and people just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the government finally ends this dispute in 1882. In order to do this, it creates an artificial distinction between rituals centered on the sun goddess and the imperial house with religion, which is now given the term shukyo, which is a neologism. And they make that a private affair. Religion is a private affair. Rituals are a public affair. Got it? And so what this means is that, so what becomes a matter of faith, Shinko, now becomes shukyo, and the priestly families that run Izumo Shrine had to reinvent themselves as the leaders of sects. The current chief priest, the Guji at Izumo Shrine, is the 84th descendant of his line, descended from Ame no Hohi no Mikoto. And the other one is called Kuni no Miyatsuko, and he's also the 84th in line of descent from Ame no Hohi no Mikoto. So it's an amazingly long-lived dynasty. Anyway, so let me go very quickly. I'm taking too much time. This is what the shrine looks like in 1903. You can see that the shrine is raised up behind gate fences, but you've got a nice honden there with the stairs leading down from it. You've got the high-den, and you've got gates at the front. The shrine was rebuilt, and it looks very much actually the way it did in 1667. That becomes the model. 1667 becomes the model. Today, it was rebuilt in 2013. So this is the honden as you see it today, only you don't really see it because it's behind the fence. And then this is the main shrine with its beautiful shimenawa, the rope across the front, which you can also find at the shrines in Suwa, around Lake Suwa, because that's, after all, where some of Okuni Nushi's descendants reside. Anyway, so what you find is that, in fact, Okuni Nushi is everywhere, you just can't see him. Thank you. Sorry. I'm not really giving you enough time for questions. I apologize.
It's okay, it's okay. Thank you very much, both of you. We, without any delay, will move right into the question and answer segment of the event. I think just out of habit, I'm going to ask first for a question or comment from the live audience, and then I will move over to the people who listen over Zoom who are asking questions. Does anyone have a first question?
If no one does, I do.
Lisa.
I have a question. Thanks, both of you, for these wonderful overlapping presentations. I learned so much. But I have lots of questions, but I'll start with a question for Tezen-san, please. In your presentation, you described how they prepared all of these new things at very short notice. A sword stem of green bamboo, 2 new futon. Were these actually made in that short period, or were they being stored in anticipation for a possible visit? I can't imagine how they could make those things literally overnight.
Well, with the help of other producers of these yukata or daike, so the carpenters can make these new bamboo, the katanakake, the swords, like shelf. So they asked. So it was like help of the local people who specialized in these each field. They gathered everyone's power and then made this possible. That's how they did. So it's
so you do believe that they actually made it over there?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It is. So the artisans in the larger community all helped out.
Yeah.
I guess with lots of people collaborating.
7 p.m. 7 p.m.
7 p.m.
Wow. Thank you, Lisa, for that. I'm sure you have other questions. I have a question here from Darlene Kelly. Let's see, it's actually 2 questions. The first, in the visit of 1789 that you described, was there a tea ceremony that was actually performed during the visit, or was he just kind of served with meals or afternoons?
According to the record, I don't really believe that there was a tea ceremony during his stay. It was more about banquet and also breakfast and lunches. We do have records on tea ceremonies, however, so that's just like a separate sort of topic that I can talk for an hours. But for this particular visit, there was, I believe, there was no tea ceremony.
There was no. Okay, got it. In-person audience, anyone? David.
What was in the Goyō-Domain records? You said every year they had a volume.
that was.
Yes. It was more about what the family was told from the Matsue Domain,
Oh,
or as Professor An said, Izumo Taisha Shrine also had a very strong power, equivalent to the Matsue Domain. So also these shrines would sort of make requests to those wealthy families as well. So there were some orders coming from Izumo Taisha Shrine and also from the domain. So
right.
the family kept the records of what kind of things were told by these two.
So interesting.
Very complicated.
Very complicated.
A lot of pressure left and
location,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
indeed.
Wow. Okay.
And you mentioned you had a question for.
Yeah, well, these records look absolutely fascinating. And I love Nikki, especially. So have they been cataloged? Is there a catalog of what you've got as your family?
Yes. It's still only in Japanese, but at least we have the let's say like outline. It's like a sort of outline of these topics covered in each volumes.
Oh.
But not everything has been transcripted.
Well, that's a huge number of records. I can't imagine that there'd be a transcript.
Outline, so it has been already.
So the Nikki too has been outlined?
Yes, I was talking about Nikki. So Nikki.
I mean, that's the first, what was it called?
So Yorozuniki
Yorozuniki
is the diary.
Yeah, that's what I'm most interested in.
Yes.
Lisa, you look like you.
I do have a question about food preparation. You mentioned in the inkstone box lid section of the menu that it included freeze-dried konjaku jelly.
Yes.
So what was the process of freeze-drying at that time?
I have freeze-dried konjac. Yeah, favorite. Yeah, that's freeze-dried.
Oh,
So you can preserve this for a very long time. So you can just stock it at your home, and then you soak this in the water and also cook in the hot water, and then you have very good dashi stock. And this doesn't really have, as you know, the konjac doesn't really have a taste, so it's more for sort of soaking very tasteful dashi soup.
but how did they make it? I mean, it was literally just left out in
Yes,
the
like,
time to
the-
freeze and to dry?
in the cold weather, in the very cold weather.
Thanks so much. Exciting.
Yeah, we can only obtain by online shopping these days. We can't really find this at local grocery stores. It's made in Ibaraki.
Okay. So there's another question from Darlene, and it has to do specifically with Nobuchika's visit. This is a detail actually I didn't catch when you were speaking, but Darlene asked, why was the visit deemed discreet? What, semi-private, or what was the evaluation there?
It's just my sort of guess is that he came for some official purpose. He came all the way to Imaichi. Imaichi is currently maybe like 20 minutes drive from Taisha. And then I think he thought about, well, I came all the way down to here. Why don't I extend my stay and then pay a visit to Izumo Taisha Shrine? So it was not initially planned visit. And because if it's official visit, then there are more retainers, more attendants. They should have to come, and also with bringing more things if it's official visit. So
It's more of an informal visit.
Unofficial.
Unofficial
Yeah.
visit. So that's probably why it was just told from where he was staying in Imaichi, so the night before, and then the sort of the person who's controlling the inn told the Tezen family just the night before that he's saying that he wants to go and visit Izumo Taisha. Can you accommodate?
Right.
Like,
I noticed you said one of the documents referred to him as the young lord, and it made me think, how old is this Nobuchika in 1789?
he was 36.
Okay,
So-
he's not a kid.
He's not kid, but somehow the family is writing his name as Komajiro, which is, well, Yome, which is like a child's name. So probably they knew him from when he was very young. So the family was used to calling him Komajiro-sama. Komajiro-sama.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And of course, the Nobuchika has different names for when he is practicing haiku. He is called as the Tezen and several names.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Lisa? How
Can
about
I
it?
ask Anne a question? I was really fascinated with your history of Izumo Taisha. That was, I studied Japanese Buddhism kind of up to about 1600. So I was interested in what you said about the Tokugawa Shogunate issuing in 1665 the Shinbutsu orders, and I was wondering.
That's not quite what it was.
Well, no, but but you did say it was sort of like a forerunner of the
Shinbutsu
of the-
Buddha, yeah.
yeah. But
Only in certain shrines though.
well, that was my question. Was it just for Izumo and Ise grand shrines, or was it for more shrines or all shrines?
Well, it's complicated because what the shrine clauses were really doing was specifying how shrine priests could get honors through the court, particularly through the Yoshida family, Yoshida
Yes.
Kaneto's family. And so one of the things that they did in that, so the idea was that if you're a shrine priest, you have to go through the Yoshida family to get permission to wear fancy shoes or to get a special ritual or whatever. But those clauses did not apply to certain of the most ancient and high-ranking shrines, and that includes Ise and Izumo. And so Ise and Izumo then decide, well, if we're going, and it also puts the shrines on as I say, a par with Buddhism. And so it's basically the shrines themselves that decide, we don't want this Buddhist stuff. We're going to get rid of it. We're going to be Shinto shrines now, and we're going to, in a sense, assert our own destiny. We're not, as you know, in the medieval period, shrines were often dominated by temples. And what these clauses do by making them equal is they are at least potentially saying, at least for these two shrines, that you don't have to be dominated by a Buddhist temple. You can get rid of all that Buddhist stuff and you can run your own affairs. And since, it only works for shrines that are not then going to be subordinate to the Yoshida. So most shrines would substitute Buddhist, well, they can either stay with the Buddhists or they could go with the Yoshida, but the Izumo and Ise are, in a sense, become independent. The clauses are very interesting. And I can give you specific citations about them that people have studied recently.
But isn't that kind of as an indicator of doctrinal purity, if you will, this kind of purgation of Buddhism from certain sites? I'm wondering, on the popular religion level, people are still going and craving, I would think, the same complexes, the shrine temple complex or multiplex, whatever the reference, that they have enjoyed up to this point. It's kind of one-stop shop for my everyday religious beliefs, rather than. So I'm wondering if on smaller shrines, whether
smaller shrines can't, they can't escape the. As I say, they have to go with the Yoshida, and the Yoshida don't really care. That thanks to Kanetomo, there's a lot of Buddhist admixture in this Shinto theology that he creates. And in fact, even when you try getting rid of Buddhist elements, you still keep a lot of the esoteric ideas about seen and unseen, the relationship between human law and divine law and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't go away. And even Atsutane at one point decides to try to create a ritual to become one with the gods, which he takes directly from esoteric Buddhism. So, in terms of power relations, you're cleansing yourself of these Buddhist elements, but in terms of doctrine, you don't.
So the average visitor, when they suddenly see the absence of the pagoda that they saw all while they were growing up, wouldn't that cause either puzzlement or even dissatisfaction? I guess I'm
that's a
speculating
good
here,
question. As I say, it only happens at a very few, that the Shimizu only happens at these, at Issei and Izumo, to my knowledge. Maybe, like, I mean, they try to do it at, what is that, what is the shrine at Hiei? The Sanno? You know, the Sanno shrine, they try purifying Buddhist elements and it doesn't work. You know, the Hiei monks are not, the Heizan monks are not about to let that shrine go away. Yeah, escape from their control.
Yeah. Any last, we have, this is a question from Ukraine. May I feel obliged, even though we're over time, to answer it. Hello, Nicholas. Greetings from Ukraine. Thank you for the lectures, professors. It was incredibly interesting. Here's my question: is there any information about which famous people stayed at the Tezen family home, and how many such hotels or maybe guest houses for nobles were there throughout Edo-Period Japan? So 2 questions. Celebrities.
Celebrities. So I don't know any of these. Ino Tadataka, who made the map of Japan, stayed at Tezen family when he was seeing the area of Izumo. So that's the celebrity, I'd say.
Sure.
And the second question, how many Goyō-yado or other areas, Honjin, I would say that's, I have to say, I have no idea. There must be so many.
What do you mean, just at Izumo? Though?
Just in Izumo. So in Kizuki area, so as I said, it's 4 families. That was sort of special area because of the Izumo Taisha shrine. And we actually did a Honjin, the excursion focused on Honjins in Izumo province. So Kizuki is only part of the Izumo as map is showed. And in here, well, we did an excursion with 2 other families, which had a very big household and had a lot of, so it sort of in between the Matsue, where the Matsue Castle is located and the Izumo Taisha shrine. Of course, it's a long distance, so they had to stop at some Honjins on the way.
And Matsue is over here, right?
A little bit north. It's
this is a map. You know, while there was still a lot of water around, a lot of this water's been filled in.
yes, but it's just the right side of the lake Shinji.
Okay.
Is the Matsue shrine. So it's a
right over here, right over here.
Left.
Yeah. Okay.
Around that area.
Okay.
But then, and we did the excursion with 2 other families, but I believe there are a lot more than that. So I have to say, well, that I have to look into some more documents to really answer the question. But,
So in terms of, it looks like Nicholas is interested in that phenomenon, you know, across the various provinces. So is it safe to assume that every province is going to have at least one, if not?
Yeah, exactly. Many. So still, if you search Honjin, like in Roman character, like HONJI, then there are some sort of house museums that preserves the building and also some utensils that they use to serve the local domains visit. So we see a lot of Honjin museums all over Japan.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone? Are we good? Okay, so again, let's give a warm round of applause. Thank you very much.